And I respect that you're willing to have an open conversation. That's what we need in this country.
You a couple of questions. And one thing, you know, if you talked, you mentioned we talked 20 years ago, and I'm going to get to that, but you should have known 20 years ago. You're not going to out-talk me, so let me ask my question. I'll let you talk, then I'll go back to the next
both
point.
ways, yeah.
All right.
Ain't nothing changed, nothing new here to see. This ain't nothing but some political maneuvering.
America.
Welcome to the eulogy, eat it up. It's called political buffoonery.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to This Week in DUMBmocracy, where we showcase some of the dumbest newsmakers of the week. Now, you know, with my track record of covering Vivek Ramaswamy, I had to do this video. It involves not only him, who I've covered quite a bit, but also the alpha and omega of buffoonery, the perfect buffoon, the namesake of the Sharpton buffoonery matrix, the Reverend Al Sharpton. But before we get to the video, please like, comment, share the show with your friends, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. We're going to be talking about this video in the context of my book, Schnooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores. And the book is important to this video because we're going to be discussing the Reverend Al Sharpton, and I used him as our lodestone of buffoonery because there are tons of examples over 4 decades of Reverend Al acting a fool. So it's very easy to call out his hypocrisy, knowing what I know about him because I did the research. I have the receipts. I'm able to show you and tell you exactly why he is a buffoon in every single instance in this video. You know what? Let's stop talking about it and let's start being about it. Let's get into the clip. This is Vivek Ramaswamy on MSNBC with Reverend Al Sharpton on his show.
First of all, thank you for being here and engaging us in this conversation. I want to start with comments you made repeatedly now, referring to Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and author Ibram Kendi as, quote, grand wizards of the modern KKK. Now, I understand you differ with both of them politically and probably with me. But as a graduate of Harvard and Yale universities, I believe you must be aware the Ku Klux Klan is not a political party. It's a terrorist organization. Historians view the Klan as the driving force behind lynchings of blacks in the American South, more than 4,000 people murdered from 1877 to 1950. And the group is linked to numerous other acts of racial violence.
Okay, is there a question in our future? Just checking.
Continuing through the civil rights movement to the present day. You're running to be the leader of the free world, so your choice of words matter. Have you taken any time to reflect upon the possibility that comparing your political rivals to murderous terrorists might put their lives in danger at a time when hate crimes are on the rise?
You know, it's very interesting to hear Reverend Al Sharpton talk about words matter, when this is a man who made an entire brand on being inflammatory, insensitive, and just being an all-around terrible person with poor choice of words. You want examples? I'm going to read you some examples from my book. So this is in the chapter about extreme lunatics. It's further on in the more irredeemable types of buffoons. Reverend Al has never been above using hate as a means of communication, so it shouldn't be surprising that Reverend Al has a history of engaging in dirty identity politics. While claiming to advocate for equal rights, Reverend Al has used ethnic innuendo and slurs to describe swaths of people during various speeches and sermons, including, and there's an entire list here that goes on for another page. I'm not going to say ethnic slurs on YouTube. It's just not going to happen. You'll have to see him in the book because I do quote him exactly. Needless to say, there's a lot of racial epithets like the N-word directed at, for instance, former New York City Mayor David Dinkins, who was the first black mayor in the history of New York City. Disparaging words against Koreans, against Chinamen, he says, is one phrase. Again, it's completely disgusting. And of course, he has his harshest criticism for the police and calling them, well, you can imagine. Point being, when Reverend Al, now on television, is talking about sensitivity of words and words matter, It's the lack of self-awareness and the hypocrisy of hearing that is off the charts. It's off the Sharpton scale.
Or do you just don't care?
So Reverend Sharpton, I don't look at the world through political parties. Frankly, it's good to see it's been 20 years since we last spoke. And part of the reason that I came to that event 20 years ago with you is that you were a political outsider just like I am in my own party. But let me talk about the issue you're actually asking about, which is that, you know, what's toxic about that old worldview of organizations like the KKK, which have been a god-awful stain on our national history, is that they say that your skin color determines what you're allowed to say, what you're allowed to think. To say you have to shut up, sit down, and do as you're told because you're black or brown-skinned. Well, you know what Ayanna Pressley said much more recently is that we don't want any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't want any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice.
And let's extend that to Joe Biden, who went on to the Breakfast Club in 2020 talking about whether or not someone is or isn't black.
So, yes, I do think there are echoes of a historical ugly racism in this country now showing up in new clothing.
To say we
and
don't
what I want to lead us to as the next president
just a second.
is a
To say
united
that we
nation
do not want
where we
black
don't actually
voices,
judge each other on the color of our
To
skin.
say that is not going with sheets and burning crosses and lynching people. If she said something you disagree with,
the point I'm making,
you cannot equate Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan with somebody saying something that you think is a little controversial or a little too far. Some of our relatives were terrorized by the Ku Klux Klan.
Is Reverend Al really talking about not using imagery of hate or using hate to get a message across? Well, it just so happens that there's a section in my book where I have a direct quote from Reverend Al Sharpton about using hate in your messaging. And I quote, "I think that hate is an emotion. I would love to use love, but if I gotta use hate, I'll deal what my hand calls for." Hypocrisy. Reverend Al is calling out someone because his own tactic is probably being used against him here. And he doesn't like it. Reverend Al has tasted his own medicine, and it is bitter.
I'm trying to get you to
Reverend
understand
Sharpton, I know
the pain
you're intellectually honest. I know you're an intellectually honest guy.
Everybody knows Reverend Al Sharpton is not an intellectually honest guy. He is certainly patronizing him and trying to play to his better emotions here and trying to win over and be the audience and be charming. And I get it. That's a cool tactic. But come on. We all know.
And so I will remind you that Hakeem Jeffries drew analogies between Donald Trump and the Ku Klux Klan, and I don't think you had him on pressing him in the same way.
Ha! Got him!
So we're drawing analogies here to make a point.
He did not call Donald Trump the Grand Dragon of the KKK. He did not call Donald Trump an officer of the modern KKK. Let's not change what was said.
So, Reverend Sharpton, though, I'm calling out a double standard and saying that certain people can use certain analogies to make a point. Well, I'm using an analogy to make a point. And the point I'm making is we should stop seeing each other on the basis of our skin color. It was god-awful when the KKK did it. But you know what? We have to learn a lesson in the present that we're creating more racial division in this country.
But you
when
cannot
you say if
do
you
it
have black skin, you can only think one thing.
You cannot do it being insensitive to our feeling. Like,
are you kidding me? Does Reverend Al have amnesia from the first, 30 years of his political career? This is a man whose stock in trade was dealing in hate and division and insensitivity and being bombastic and shocking people to try to send a message. And now Vivek Ramaswamy can't do that? This is why he is the alpha and omega of buffoonery. This is why he's the perfect buffoon. This is why he's the lodestone of my buffoonology that I talk about in my book. It's stuff like this shocking lack of self-awareness, this hypocrisy, this using emotion. He himself is using and invoking imagery of the KKK to make his own point. It's multiple strata of buffoonery all in this one segment. It's a perfect illustration of Reverend Al being the perfect buffoon.
That's like calling somebody of any kind of group that had a group that were terrorizing.
So I agree with you. We need sensitivity.
So I think we need to be very careful about that. And I wanted to raise that with you directly. Let me go to my next point.
And I respect that you're willing to have an open conversation.
But
That's
I
what we
want
need
to
in this
ask you a
country.
couple of questions. And one thing, you know, if you talked, you mentioned we talked 20 years ago, and I'm going to get to that. But you should have known 20 years ago. You're not going to out-talk me. So let me ask my question. I'll let you talk. Then I'll go back to the
Goes
next
both
point.
ways, yeah.
All right.
Woo, game on. I love to see it. Reverend Al clearly triggered. He doesn't like that Vivek is not backing down, that he is sticking to his guns. And he tried to get the last word in a little dig there, and Vivek Ramaswamy was not having it. Listen, I don't know if Vivek Ramaswamy is going to be president or not, but he is sure entertaining, and he is a slayer of buffoons. Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show. So far, I think Ramaswamy has gotten the better of Sharpton in his own show, but that was only one of many questions. And by the way, we're not going to go through the whole video. The entire video, the entire segment from MSNBC is linked below in the description of the video, so you can check out the entire clip there. We're going to do certain sections of it that I thought were pretty interesting. Let's move on. So far, I think it's Vivek 1, Reverend Al nothing.
You've spoken out against affirmative action and diversity programs, even though it is a reporting in Axios and elsewhere have produced evidence. Your own former company has been involved in various DEI and ESG initiatives. Your own companies, DEI, diversity. I would hope we can agree that historically many communities of color have not enjoyed the same socio-economic benefits as white Americans. And many of those disparities persist to this day. What specifically would you do as president to address that problem, keeping in mind your own company got diversity business?
Reverend Al is gotcha fishing right now. He's trying to make a viral moment, catching what he thinks is an inconsistency in Ramaswamy's presentation. Let's see how Vivek Ramaswamy handles that.
Yeah, so I want to be very clear about that. After I stepped down as CEO, precisely to speak my mind freely, the company that I founded went the direction of most companies in corporate America. And I disagree with that decision. But you're asking a more important question about what are we going to do to ensure equality of opportunity in this country. You're right. We have been an imperfect nation. I've always said it. But we aspire towards perfection. How do we go that next step? I want to make sure kids aren't trapped in the ghetto of a zip code that they happen to be born in. To the contrary, I think every parent deserves to have the opportunity to send their kids to the best possible school. That's why I favor radical school choice in this country. I think it's a mystery, Reverend Sharpton. The very people who will wax eloquent about systemic racism are also the ones who are opposed to educational mobility. That's why I've said shut down the U.S. Department of Education. Use that $80 billion. Put it in the hands of parents so they can actually send their kids to that best possible school they can. That's the actual civil rights issue of our time. So I stand for solutions. I stand for equality of opportunity. But I reject race-based quota systems.
I did not go to Harvard, but I know when a question is not answered. I did not ask you about education. I asked you about diversity in business. I asked you about a company you headed getting DEI. How do we deal with
here's what I'm against.
Wait a minute. Let me ask the question again. How do we deal with the economic disparity in businesses of color and people of color in the economic arena? You ran the school choice, good duck, but wrong show. Deal with the economic. You're a businessman.
It's actually related.
It is actually related. And oh, by the way, Reverend Al, you may want to clean out your ears there. He did answer the question about DEI in his former company and how that occurred when he was no longer there. And then he went on with his presentation talking about educational opportunity and equal opportunity to be able to move up that economic ladder. He was answering the question pretty well. Did he answer it to the liking of Reverend Al? Apparently not. But it's not about what Reverend Al likes, it's about getting the man's answer. But again, this is Reverend Al we're dealing with, and he is fishing for that viral moment. He's gotcha fishing right now, and it didn't work to his liking.
You know, I know you're smarter than this to know that education leads to economic prosperity. So there's no Band-Aid fix.
But after you're educated, we have educated people that can't get contracts. We have educated people that have no problem with being educated that can't get contracts. How do you deal with the inequality in how they do business in this country?
And now he's mad at Ramaswamy for not getting to the part of the answer that he was looking for as fast as he wanted to. Apparently, he agreed that education is important in dealing with economic disparity. I think we all agree with that. But now he's upset that because he didn't get to the part that he wanted to fast enough, that he should just get to the point already. I don't want to hear about your entire thoughtful answer. This is why he's a buffoon, folks.
How they get jobs. That's where the DEI programs come from.
So I understand where they come from. I'm against it because it causes us to see one another on the basis of our skin color. I can tell you from personal experience, I have hired, both in businesses I've founded, even in this campaign, people who are black executives who have, I think, been unfairly judged. I put them in those positions because of merit. Other people at the companies and otherwise have seen those people as getting that position because of racial quota systems.
All right.
That is wrong, no matter whether you're black or white.
Many of them
we
were
need to go
barred
back to
because
colorblind meritocracy. That's what we need in this country.
Well,
that's how I've led the companies I've built.
There were many,
that's how I will lead this country.
You know that many of them
were
barred and had the merit. But
so, again, Reverend Al did not like the answer. He seemed kind of triggered by the answer. He doesn't look happy at this moment. I think Ramaswamy might have gotten him again. Not as well, though. He talked aspirationally about DEI and meritocracy, not about how it could be achieved. Through education can certainly be achieved in the long run, and through a change of culture as well, I would think. But he didn't really get to how to enforce that currently in the business climate. So I'll give Ramaswamy a half a point on this one. Now, this is the best moment, in my opinion, that Vivek Ramaswamy had with Reverend Al Sharpton and how he really got him here. This is right after the moment where Reverend Al showed the clip from back when he was running for president of a very young Vivek Ramaswamy asking him a question about his political experience and being a political outsider in that campaign. Let's watch this interaction, and I want you to pay attention to what Ramaswamy does with this entire exchange. To me, it's hilarious.
So 20 years later, now my turn to ask you, of all the Republican candidates out there, why should someone vote for you, the one with the least political experience? And I might add, you've never held office. You've only voted twice.
That's correct.
In the last few elections. You don't even vote regularly.
Yes.
Yes, the Teslin Figaro line of questioning. Here we go again. We saw Chris Christie do this, and now we're seeing Reverend Al do it. Buffoons of a feather, folks.
And you support Donald Trump, who never held office until he was president. Well, you putting a different standard on me, but I won't even make the racial application there. Why should we vote for you?
Listen, at the age of 18, I think you persuaded me on that one, that political experience is not the same as holding office. To tell you the truth, the reason I came out there and I was intrigued.
Can I put out right-wing press that Sharpton converted a young, well, I don't want to take credit for you.
He doesn't want to take credit for him. He just tried to grandstand, and he thought about it and realized, oh no, I don't want to take credit for what did I do? Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And one other thing I'll say here, Vivek Ramaswamy is a happy warrior. He's always happy, he's always positive, and he goes right along with the whole idea of less government, more fun. Check it out in the shop, shop.buffoonoftheweek.com. Cheap plug, I know, but I had to do it.
Outside of political experience, I'm going to tell you the truth. One of the things, I'll even give you one more for you, okay? You were the only anti-war candidate back then. I was against the Iraq War. As I recall, you were the only anti-war candidate in either party. Well, guess what? Tables turn now. I'm the only true anti-war candidate in either political party now when it comes to Ukraine. I believe in America First policies. I think this Ukraine war does not advance American interests. I was the only person with the courage to say that on the Republican debate stage last week. The real war I would take on is the war against the administrative state. the shadow government here at home.
Look at Reverend Al's face right now. This is not where he thought this response was going to go. He is not prepared for this at all, for this line. Vivek Ramaswamy totally flipped the script on Reverend Al on his own show.
I think the people who we elect to run the government, once again, ought to be the people who actually run the government, not the cancerous bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. I'll have a 75% headcount reduction for all of the people who weren't elected in Washington, D.C. So this is a very different vision than you hear amongst traditional Democrats for sure, but even amongst traditional Republicans. I want to shut down the administrative state. I want to declare independence from China. I want to grow our economy by drilling and fracking and embracing energy. And I want to revive national pride in this country. That's not a Republican idea or a Democratic vision. It is a pro-American vision.
And there you have it, folks. I think this is a great example of not only preparation by Vivek Ramaswamy and lack of preparation by Reverend Al, who, again, was fishing for that viral moment. He's always going for the headline. He's always going for the gusto, right? But coming up short, sort of that BS buffoon, the Buffoon supercilious, as I call it, that low BS buffoon that is just so outclassed and overmatched that it's sad and it's funny at the same time. That's why I'm laughing at Reverend Al throughout this whole thing. But it's two different worldviews, I think you see. One more aspirational, the other more about division and trying to go for gotcha. It didn't work here for Reverend Al, and that's why he is the alpha and omega buffoonery, the lodestone of buffoonery, the perfect buffoon. And that takes us to the end of this video, my friends. Thank you so much for hanging out for this long. If you like what you've seen, please like, comment, share the show with your friends, subscribe to the channel, because I want to keep having fun like this, talking about all the shenanigans and buffoonery with you guys that's going on this week in DUMBmocracy.
All views and opinions expressed here are not necessarily of the mainstream media and may offend some listeners. It's called political buffoonery.